The second game between Krabs and the Fister Sisters is going to be played on the second team home map, and that will be Molde. It seems to be quite a popular map so far in the tournament, chosen actually quite often, even though it isn't in the normal random upset. So players do not really play it all that often. Maybe in RTS leagues sometimes it is played, but very quite often used in the frozen times. Definitely good to see, as it's a bit different map, and it's not all the same. Tundra and Ghost Lake and such. You can also see in different maps that are available and quite well playable. Looking at the gods, we are seeing a bit of switches, actually a lot of switches. Just Fox is sticking to Oranos, then Magic is switching or rather sticking with Loki. And the last one, Paper Cut, is also sticking with Loki, but there are a lot of switches. Nightkiller from Ra, I think he was, into Odin. Joe is switching from Set into Gaia. Interesting switch from him. And Askiel is going from Oranos into Loki. A lot of aggression plus Gaia. So let's see how it's gonna go on this home map of the Fister Sisters. Of course, pretty decent hand, as Molde is fairly high hand overall. Basically, what is different about this map is that opponents are kinda close to each other. The distance between the players is not really all that big, and it's fairly open. The spawn of the wolf right inside the base. Kinda unusual, but of course, once you have the TC in there, it's going to be saving you quite a lot of extra damage into potentially your release or the scaling, as you can see. And to finish my thought, the map is also quite open, so quite good for aggressive gods, exactly as we are seeing in this map from both of the sides. Extra hand at the back, so he definitely knows where to go next, whereas the gold is basically close to both the town center and the tower, so easy for him to defend, and yep, that's a pretty good spawn for a lot of skill. Magic right now in the pocket, as we have seen Nightkill using Great Hunt, or rather, yeah, Great Hunt for, from all those caribous at the back. Ah yeah, that's definitely gonna help. Definitely gonna help, as he's also moving there with the goat, so probably hoping to be sticking there for a bit longer. And he's just finishing with the wolfie, so he's gonna move in for all the caribous, and he's gonna be sticking there for quite some time. And I'm thinking he might be even in there long enough for his opponents potentially to find him, but we'll see in just a moment, as of course are still at the very start of the game. Magic, as I said that he is in the pocket, or maybe started to say it, he isn't. Askiel is actually in the pocket, because the spawn is kind of interesting on the map, and definitely confirming that the opponents are quite close to each other, because on the top, not really top flank, bottom left flank, you are seeing Fox, and you can see how close he's actually to his opponent, Paper Cut. That's really super close, and they are going to be fighting over this TC. This TC is also interesting from strategical standpoint, but this one is most definitely super important, as it's literally halfway across between Fox and his opponent Paper Cut, and whoever controls this TC basically controls the way into the opponent's base, and that's exactly what is important in any game of Age of Mythology. Paper Cut already going for TC, or rather for Temple. That's almost looking like a very fast advance from him. Quite interesting. Let's see how it's looking for the opponents. For example, having pretty decent hand, of course. Double hunt next to the front TC. Shouldn't be having any kind of problem. Magic in this position. Also pretty decent gold at the back of his base. We are also seeing decent hand, as Joe is right now scouting it at the top, as he is as a Gaia going to be facing his opponent. Unfortunately, you can see that he is not having enough resources, and that's why. I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure. Because he hasn't built Economy Guild, which means that he actually is gathering quite slowly. Oh well, that's going to be late advance. He wasn't doing anything with his TC for like half a minute, so that's definitely not optimal. And against Magic, it's going to be a very hard game for him. At any rate, Nightkill is also building a pretty aggressive temple, so they are probably going to be advancing very fast. So that's Heimdall at 330 advance, and that's, oh well, Freya also very soon. So it's looking like that actually this is actually planned for Joe. And he was tributing resources to his allies, I'm pretty certain. Let's check. Yes, he sent 732 resources to his allies so that they could advance sooner. And we are already coming in. Paper Cut right now advancing into the next age, and you can see Fox at 15% into Prometheus, whereas 30% into Forseti and 13% into Forest City, we are already in, and of course this is going to be basically the standard, as Forest Fire is going to be cast, but unfortunately, a lot of damage is going to be absorbed by those goats. So those stakes are going to be working quite nicely. But let's see if it's going to be enough damage. It should be, oh, come on Red, come on, you should be already in. Should be already in to basically limit the damage, but it is definitely coming down. So nicely played, and Fox is reduced to 0 TCs, and he's not even advancing into the next age. I will be keeping this guy alive, and he's probably going to lose a lot of release as well, because not only is he not having any... Oh, that's nice. Using the tower to actually tower hop and get away. Teleport at least a few squares. He should be killing at least 2 villagers in here, running away even with the ones at the bottom, and this is definitely unexpected gameplay so far. And let's see if the sisters are going to be able to actually follow through with this very fun strategy from them. Oh man. Oh man. So once it isn't down, with a bit of luck, it's going to be 2-3 actually, could be. That wasn't the better. Yeah, he's actually maybe running away. And no, he isn't. But he at least saved the second one, I'm thinking. Or maybe he didn't? Yeah, he did. Should be having enough. Oh! Oh! Just as I said it, he actually turned back for some absolutely obscure reason. And it's going to cost him his life, because he basically gave the Valkyrie 2 extra hits. He could have retreated to safety, I'm pretty sure of it. So, how did the guy not die? He was being pursued by a pretty strong army on the left, but somehow he survived, so even though this dude died for nothing, the top one at least survived, so Fox is not all that tragically off. But let's see how right now he's going to develop, because of course, even though Fox is kinda half dead, he is Atlantean, which means he cannot really be eliminated all that easily. He doesn't need all the buildings and such. He's going to be pretty much fine. It's just the villagers supplying some extra resources, basically the same as Joe is doing to his teammates potentially, and maybe even rebuilding himself just quite fine. Fox is having enough resources, just needs a little gold that he can go for, of course, the town center, but otherwise, since he's going into the next age, he's having a whole lot of food, so potentially he can be still useful in the early fighting against the opponent. So let's see, Magic with a skill will be able to carry or not, because of course, in the former base of Fox, Night Killer with Paper Cut are setting themselves up. In the meantime, Askil though is having a pretty big army and taking quite advantageous fights against Paper Cut. Whereas Magic is not really doing all that much at the top, not really attempting to raid or anything. As you can see, that Fox is attempting a TC at the back of the allies' bases. And with Magic sending absolutely everything to the bottom, it's really going to be looking like that Magic with Askil will be trying to take their opponents head on, and since they are two Lokis, they could be getting quite good spawns, and they might be turning the battle around, because of course, Night Killer is Odin, he's not Loki, so even though he's going for a pretty decent army of Ulfsarks, he's not gonna get any help against the mythic units, and they could be the thing that will be turning the match around in the Scrub's favor. So let's see how the experts deal with this unexpected but very nicely executed strategy by the Fister sisters, as Joe is right now through Leto, and of course faster than his opponent Fox. Oh, nicely found out, but unfortunately a bit too late with the Valkyrie. And Automaton having a bit of luck, as he's probably going to be attempting to raid at least those hunters. Nicely played. But Magic is paying enough attention as he's counting that something like that could be happening sometime soon. Papercut in the meantime being forced a bit back as Askil is biding his time to go with Magic. Magic also going for a bit of raiding. Ah yeah, nicely dividing the army. Not exactly sure if it was intentional because they couldn't fit at the bottom or not, but it almost looked like that he actually was trying to catch a few villages there at the top. But at any rate, that's exactly something that you should be doing. One dwarf dead, but it's going to be pretty much it, it seems like. He's going at least for some upgrade into towers, which doesn't seem to be happening. But let's move to the back to Fox's base, because Askil is right now feeling that he's having enough army, and since he's having pretty decent amount of throwing axemen who are already mediums, he could definitely be right that he might be able to take this on, especially right now with Fox going through Prometheus and going to be setting himself up finally for some joining into the battles. And yep, here we see mythical units propping up from both sides, but the armies are much better and seems like much better control from Askil in here, and he is winning the battle a lot more convincingly than I thought that he would. But I think that was basically the result of all those medium throwing axemen. So, looking quite well for them. Quite well for Askil to basically get rid of a Night Killer and Paper Cut at this stage of the game. Whereas at the top we are seeing that Magic is actually switching from the bottom and leaving Askil alone at the bottom, which I think he's going to be quite capable of handling it. And switching into Joe, who should be quite nicely boomed at this stage, but doesn't seem so that much. Hand axe, pickaxe. Well, he should be having pretty strong economy. And Magic seems to be well off, but he could also want to try to have a look a bit more to the north, as there is a hunt happening. There's a TC and there's a relic for a better building pierce attack, which is of course quite important if you are having towers or TCs as well. So Magic right now trying to take things slowly in there, as he's also having second flank raiding around a bit on the minimap. When he's going to reach something interesting, I'm going to be switching and have a look at that as well, because in the meantime Askil is really doing all he can to advance his cause and is basically handling two opponents just by himself and doing a pretty damn good job of that. That's normal throwing axeman, of course, as he's having mediums, and that's of course making quite a lot of difference in the gameplay and the reason why he's winning. And of course those two trolls and the INARs for some extra damage on all the units, they are making quite a lot of difference in the game, and this is exactly what the scraps need to let Fox come back into the game. And he's already in, sending Turmas to the top, trying to help Magic with dealing with the blue opponent. So Spidey is going to be interested in eating some of the throwing axemen, not the Hersers anymore, and will be balanced patch to 0, whereas the raiding party is looking right next to the TC, and is he gonna attempt to steal it? No, he isn't. Just looking for something to raid, really, and he could be quite lucky. He actually goes to the right, but he seems quite intent on scouting around Night Killer. But he has already just right now researched towers, and he's having quite a lot of idols in the back, which is definitely a shame, but well, once he discovers them, they will be quite nice help in the defense of his home base. Yeah, Proper right now going to the top, right next to the hunt, as Magic is already at 2 TCs as the first player of the game, but Askil is also going to be following the second TC pretty soon, and even a third one. I see things correctly, and I don't actually. I'm not seeing things correctly, but yeah, of course, the former home TC of Fox is right now his, and he's also having pretty decent army. So right now, he has, on top of that, somewhere to run back to for some extra fire from a building. So pretty hard times coming up, even if Nightclave is already having medium throwing axemen. So Askil really should be careful a bit more, because the situation is getting a bit more equal. Second TC right now being captured by Joe as well, as he's been of course raided at the top, but that's defended by the Turmas of his own. And having pretty decent army of Aeroballistae, which is of course going to be working for him quite nicely against all the infantry that Loki is spawning, but he needs to be careful. But all those trolls, because of course they are pretty strong against normal human units, and those hero Turmas are most definitely needed in here, even though, oh, 3 hit points, 2 hit points. That was kind of questionable use of resources on there, but they did work. They did work to actually force his opponent back, so that's exactly what he needed. But with the armory up, we would be expecting Magic to go for a Brage. He already is, as there's also a pretty big engagement yet again at the bottom, with TC being attempted by Night Killer. And right now it's looking quite dire for the Fister Sisters, because Paper Cut with Night Killer are having pretty big problems against Askil, as Askil is basically still winning the battle and having exactly pretty nice tanks in those INARs, and even though they are gonna die in here, they are serving absolutely greatly as protection of all those throwing axemen, and of course they are also increasing the damage of all the units in their vicinity, which also counts quite a lot. And you can see that's one of the many reasons why Askil is so far doing such a great job against all of his opponents left side of the map. And seems to be kinda equalish, with Magic also joining into the fun. That of course means The situation is getting a bit more dire and not really equalish, as I was saying a bit earlier. Whereas Magic is allowed to actually join at the bottom because he's been held by Fox and he's already having pretty decent army. And you can see that Magic right after the Bragi is going to be jumping into the Mythical Age and hoping for, I would be thinking for Tyr. Tyr shouldn't be really far behind. And let's see how effective he's gonna be, as he is also. The Raiden party finally finding something interesting to kill, and yeah, that's tough on Night Killer, as he's probably right now microing as much as he can in the battle at the bottom. Yeah, trying to rebuild some military buildings a bit to the back, but yeah, here he is losing his basically whole gold economy, and even though he has just finished with the TC at the top, that's probably not going to be strong enough, because of course this is quite early for him, and there's not much that he can be doing without gold against the opponents. So of course Askil is winning the battle at the bottom. Yep, and we see the GG coming up, as Fox is right now trying to basically make life difficult for Joe from both sides. Doing a pretty good job at that, and with in the middle, Magic joining in with at least half of his army. That's of course pretty tough situation for Joe to be in, and since at the bottom Askil is absolutely owning the situation, yeah, there's not much of a chance that this game would end up in Dot's favor. But very nice strategy at the very end, at the very beginning, killing the Fox. That worked like magic against Magic's team. That was a very nice attempt. That's exactly what we like to see in team games. Unusual strategies, or strategies not used all that often. But this time their opponents, they had enough skill to overcome even that kind of big surprise. Let's check the post game. Askil most definitely agree that he was the most important part of the game and why the scraps were able to defend and survive even. Nothing interesting really. Yeah, not really all that much. This post game so far. Whereas Fox military count 35 units killed 6. Yeah. Yeah. Was out of the game for majority of it. Of course makes sense. So 336, 353. Not great times, of course. Fox 821 due to that, and 703 for Joe because he was slinging his allies for 780 resources at the start so that they can advance faster. A much steeper curve, of course, on the military units of the attacking team. Well, GG, and 2-0 then for the scraps, and they advance into the quarterfinals as well.